Well, a pleasant good Tuesday morning, afternoon from wherever you are dialing in this morning. Good morning. My name is Victor Leamer, and I want to welcome you to today's session called Leading Virtually. And I'm virtually broadcasting from my basement in beautiful sunny Spokane. I almost said Spokane, Alaska. I grew up in Alaska, but Spokane, Washington. And it's going to be a great, quick 90 minutes, and I want to thank you for joining me today. But before we begin, I think we need to discuss some things that will make today's class relevant and hopefully will make sense to you as we go along. We're going to talk about the facts as to about America's workforce and us working remotely. And just to let you know that before the coronavirus pandemic, only 17% of US employees worked from home 5 days or more per week. And as we got into this year, by April, 42 states had mandated their residents to stay home. And that's in order to combat the spread of coronavirus. Now, fast forward to June, and another study showed 75% of American workers said they would ideally work from home at least one day a week after the shutdown measures have ended and that when the pandemic is under control. 32% of Americans say they prefer to ditch their commutes altogether and work from home every day. Now, half of executives expect to extend options for most of their office workers to work from home at least one day a week, and up to 39% of companies, that's up from 39% of companies who said so before the pandemic. Now, most executives say companies that shifted almost their entire office workforce to remote work as the virus spread in the US has been a success. And Academy Udemy, I always have to say Academy before saying Udemy because that's the only way I can remember how to say that. But Udemy is the largest global marketplace for learning and teaching online. And they released a special report that showed the worldwide increase of online teaching. Another survey from another global marketplace for learning called Cornerstone also showed that 86% expect their agency will provide more virtual courses in the future. Now, why has this been so successful, working from home and attending events virtually? Well, we're finding that there is value in presenting virtual events, including little or no travel cost, no size limits, no space requirements, no burden on the customers to attend, like parking or finding directions to where you work. You're able to record training events so that you could build a library. And it's just as effective and engaging as with face-to-face events. And more importantly, lately, there's no germs. So now the question in regards to working remotely and providing services in a virtual environment is no longer if or when or how, or more importantly, who. And you don't have to guess who's going to be providing these particular courses or online services. It's going to be you and me in the procurement world. And now, interesting thing from Forbes magazine, they released some bold and some insightful facts in regards to the value of presenting virtually. Here's a few of them. And as you look at them, you can see, yeah, it's kind of an agreement to why it's been so successful. It's interesting, it's affordable, it's easy to attend. And the funny thing is, Forbes made this point over 2 years ago. So the question is, 2 years later, are we ready for the challenge that we're going to be meeting? Well, in order to get you prepared for the roles that you will be playing, or you are playing, or have been told or voluntold you'll be playing, we're going to be focusing on these two areas in today's agenda. I'll share some tips, some suggestions, and point you in the right direction for some training should you want to get some more information and work better on getting your skills. Now, during today's presentation, please use the Q&A button to send any questions that you would like me to address throughout today's presentation. And Justin Deering from NIGP, the man behind the curtain that's making all this magic happen, he'll be monitoring the Q&As, and if there's anything relevant or pertinent at the time we're discussing, he'll bring that up, and otherwise, we'll address your questions at the end of today's presentation. Also, if you wouldn't mind, if you have comments as we go along, there'll be some text boxes that pop up that say, in the chat box, share your feelings on this. Make sure it says all panelists and attendees so everyone can see what your comments are as we go along today. Now, area one is the instructor and the customer engagement. And the customer is anybody that reaches out to you, email, phone, in person. It could be a fellow employee, a vendor, or anybody that you're going to have a working relationship. We'll focus on how you can carry over those skills that you currently possess in a face-to-face environment over to the virtual world. And it's almost as important as preparing yourself as preparing your customers to the virtual world. We'll share you some tips on how it's important that they get information, understand how the process works, understand what's expected of them in the meeting, and what their responsibilities will be during the meeting. But before we go any further, I want to, with the help of Justin, go through a few poll questions. I just want to gauge your experience with the virtual world. Now, the intent of these questions is rapid fire. Each question is going to be open for just 30 seconds each. So respond to them very quickly. And because Zoom, when we're recording a Zoom session, the question and the poll results don't show up in the recording. Forgive me if I do the obvious and read the questions and the poll results. It's just for the benefit of those who will be watching this in the later or in the future. So the first question is virtual events that you've currently attending or have been attending, and mark every one. It could be meetings, staff, teleconferences, for training. Possibly you went to a recent forum maybe. You could check that off too. And personal events would be something like a concert. So mark off each one that you have been attending or have attended in the past. And Justin, would you like to say hi and good morning to everyone?
Yeah, hello everyone, and we'll leave this up for another couple of seconds. And Victor, here are the results for the first poll.
Okay, thank you, Justin. So it appears it's 98% that we've all been involved with our work in the virtual world in regards to meeting. 75% have been doing procurement activities, 95% in training and personal events have been 63%. All of these, when I did this class presentation to an NIGP chapter months ago, this has been increased significantly in just a matter of months. So it's interesting to see we are moving over and possibly adapting to the virtual world. Our next question, since COVID-19 began, virtual events that you have been attending have either decreased, stayed the same, increased slightly, or increased dramatically. You get one choice, so enter and sign in, please. And as soon as you're done, we'll share those results with you very shortly. And thank you for everyone that's chiming in the chat box. I always love to see where people are attending from. Occasionally how good the weather is or how bad the weather is, but it's nice to see everyone in this morning.
Yeah, we'll give everybody about 5 more seconds to get the response in.
Okay, Justin.
And here are the results.
Yep, as I expected, increased dramatically, and 81% of the voters have said it has increased dramatically. Decreased 5%. That's interesting. I'd like to discuss that. Maybe you have some explanation in the chat box why it has decreased. But 81% have said that the virtual events have increased dramatically since COVID-19. Now, on to our third and final question for this initial round. In regards to leading a virtual event, where are you at right now? You've never done one. You've done them in the past, but you're not doing those currently. I've been doing them and will continue to be doing them. And finally, I never led one, but I've been asked to do so recently. So where are you at in there in regards to leading a virtual event? Not attending, but actually leading an event. Maybe I should have had some poll music queued up to play in the background, but hope you all enjoyed the music beforehand. Maybe next time I'll take requests.
Yeah, we'll do a 5-second warning here. And here are results.
Thank you, Justin. All right, here are the results. 32%, I've never done one. 8% say I've done them in the past, but currently not doing that. So 40% are not currently doing virtual events. 51%, I've been doing them and will continue to. Congratulations to you. And then 9%, I've never led one, but I've been recently asked to do them. And for that 9%, I hope you enjoy all the information that we'll be sharing, not only in the presentation, but in the chat box. And should you have any questions, it's a whole new world, but we're in this together. Now, when I did this class to an NIGP chapter earlier, I sent out a pre-survey question and asked them, "What's your concern? What are you anxious about in the environmental world?" And for the most part, it centered around engagement. They were concerned that how they act in a meeting wouldn't carry over into a virtual world. And here's the list of these concerns, and they're valid concerns, because if you teach in a classroom, there's so much interaction, so much face-to-face, reading people, shaking people's hands, that you can't do in a virtual world. But I would actually disagree, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But the important thing that we have to be concerned about is our message. What are we getting across in our meeting, be it a staff meeting, a training session? What we do in the real world, can we carry this over to the virtual world? If we can't teach, share, inform, train in a virtual world, what's the point of it? It is a big concern. But one thing that you can do to maybe enhance your teaching ability in a virtual world is to use all the senses. I like to use videos more and more. If I'm presenting a point, or I have a pre-recorded message from a guest speaker, or even a short video, it just breaks up. It has another source that's providing an objectional opinion on something I'm talking about. But the important thing is you have to take into consideration your audience. And also you have to take into consideration one thing, that if you don't address even before you jump into the virtual world, you will not have success. And nobody can address this situation but you. And it's important that you do this in order for your meetings to be effective. And that's your attitude. If you go into a virtual environment and say, it will not work, what I do in the classroom will not work, then it will not work. Take this year's NIGP forum. I was disappointed that it was canceled. I was looking forward to a lot of the face-to-face interaction. I was looking forward to teaching a class face-to-face. But when they said it wasn't going to be happening and they were switching over to a virtual world, it's just that. NIGP said, this is the course we're taking. And that's the same way you have to think about the virtual world, virtual training environment. It's not an alternative. It's another way of teaching. You really can't compare the two, but you can take everything you do in the virtual world, in the real world, in the real classroom face-to-face environment, but you can carry that over, and your attitude will seriously affect how you present, how you learn, how you interact with your audience. And here's some advice that will really help you focus on what's important in any event, and more importantly, what's not important as you move forward.
You wonder what I see in your future?
No. Yes.
I never saw your future, only its possibilities. You have such a capacity for goodness. You always excelled, but not because you craved success, but because of your fear of failure.
It's what made me a great doctor.
It's precisely what kept you from greatness. Arrogance and fear still keep you from learning the simplest and most significant lesson of all.
Which is?
It's not about you.
I don't know about you, but those were very simple but powerful words. For me, it took away all that anxiety about presenting in a virtual world. You know, the fear that you experienced when you first taught your class in person. Now in the virtual world, again, the same thing carries over. It's not about you. It's about what you provide. And I hope that takes away some of the anxiety and the power. I would be lying if I say I'm not as scared when I taught my first class as I'm teaching today. I still get very anxious. I get very nervous, but I anticipate it now. I'm ready for it, and I can channel that energy into my presentation and still have fun with it. I'm not paralyzed by it anymore. And I think our attitude when presenting in a virtual environment should also reflect what we do in the procurement world. And if you're trying to figure out what that is, what is it you do in the procurement world that's going to carry over into the virtual environment when you provide training or meetings? There's one place that I always send people to look. I say, go to your mission statement. What does your mission statement say? And when's the last time you read it? And when's the last time you read it and said, am I still doing that? This is my favorite mission statement from all the 50 states. It's not only the shortest, I like that too, but I worked for the state of Alaska for 30 years. And while I was working underneath this mission statement, I referred to it a lot. I had it up on my wall, and whenever I was in training some new staff, I would say, here's your mission statement, check in with it occasionally. Now, it's the same attitude that we have as doing a buyer, a contracting officer, that we need to carry over into the teaching and leading a meeting virtually. You need to help others learn and understand the material so that they can be the best that they can be. And chances are that they're probably feeling a little bit anxious too. And that's how you need to put yourself in their shoes. Remember that first time you taught the class? Well, this is going to be the first time that you might be teaching or attending a virtual environment. And many of the concerns that you have about understanding the technical side of it, they're going to have too. I received a letter from a former student that I taught an NIGP class when they found out that their next class was going to be a virtual class. She sent me this letter and she said, I cannot see that a Zoom class will be able to provide the same class interaction as being in class. The most valuable part of the class I attended recently was the information I received from the 8 or 9 local cities surrounding my city. We were able to share problems and resolve problems. Zoom does not allow for side-by-side conversation, and we use the break to interact and get to know each other and other cities. Well, I spent a good time writing and drafting a letter telling her, in fact, Zoom does allow for interaction for smaller group meetings, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, and just reassured her that the instructor who will be teaching that class is very good at what she does, and just keep that mind open into trying new things. After the class, I asked, how did it go? And she said, the students thought the class was excellent. So there you go. Now, understanding the emotions that they have and how they're dealing with the virtual world and working remotely and empathizing with them will really help you to help them have a great experience, to know that they're going to be engaging, that they're going to be interacting, that they're going to be allowing to ask questions, and that it's going to be very valuable use of their time. I think part of the problem is just the terminology that we use. When you think of working remote, you have to deal with that fact that you're an island, you're out there by yourself. But using the word virtual, it means like you're almost there. And that's what I try to encourage people is it's just going to be like you're here. We're just going to be sharing a camera, a screen, but we'll be able to talk and interact more and more. In fact, when I think back at NIGP Forum, wasn't it great that we all had a front seat throughout the whole event? I think that was a highlight. And something else to keep in mind too, as you prepare your group is you need to reach out to them in advance. And not only just tell them this is the time for the meeting and it'll be this long, but you need to reach out before to prepare them. An agenda will tell your audience what the topic is, how long it's going to last, maybe even as as close as how long each topic will be. And then they'll also know what role they'll be playing. If you want them to share information, don't tell them at the meeting, I need your input on this. Tell them in the agenda, here's the topic, be prepared to talk on it. And send it in advance with a calendar invite and remind them to sign in early to an event. And if need be, have a pre-presentation meeting, especially if you're using new technology. Make sure in your calendar invite you tell them to sign in early because there might be an update to the software that they might have to load. And also, you might have a chance to interact. I always like in going to these NIGP webinars at least 10, 15 minutes early and interacting with people who are coming. And sometimes I see a friendly name and I get a chance to say hi. Also, in that pre-meeting or in the agenda, you might need to tell them about the technology that they're going to need. Will a phone work? Do they need a headset? What about lighting? All those things are important. The more they know in advance, the more they're going to be buying in and participating. Also, they need to know what's in it for them. Anytime I go to a class or a training or a presentation, if I don't know in the first 2 minutes why I'm there, I often will tune out. And it's tough for me to get engaged if I don't know why I'm there. Another thing that's good to do in advance is to send out a survey. A survey will gauge their experience with the topic. When I teach a class with NIGP, I'd like to find out not only their title, but what do they buy? What services do they do? What's their background in the topic of the class? What's their background in procurement? And then I usually ask some silly question like, what's your favorite movie? Or what's your favorite ice cream? That survey goes to everybody attending the class so they get a chance to introduce themselves. So when we do meet, there's already some engaging going on in advance. Again, sign in early, engage in some small talk. It's important that you engage with your customers, with your staff, whoever's on the other end of this camera. They want to make sure that there's a human being on the other side. A survey is much like a virtual handshake. Now, if we were, say at Forum, if we were to meet each other face to face, chances are we'd probably hug each other, or at least a handshake. But doing this in advance and during your meeting is just like a handshake. Same thing with an icebreaker. A silly question or something that you can tie into the topic matter that gets everyone engaged and interacting and having a chance to either talk or type in. That is the same thing as a virtual handshake. And that's so important. When you meet someone for the first time, what's the first thing you usually do? It's like, hi, how are you? Or more it's like an elbow or a phantom high five. But it's the same thing you can do virtually. And that's what you need to do to establish rapport with those that will be watching. Introduce yourself to your audience, allow them to get to know each other in advance. All this that you do in preparing them to participate makes it so much easier. I kind of correspond it with like a race or exercise. You just don't jump out of bed and go to a workout. You warm up, you stretch, hopefully, and you're warmed up. So when you're actually engaging, you're ready to go. And that's the same thing. You get your audience warmed up, you're going to get better attitude, better cooperation, and much higher level of engagement. Now, our second part of the agenda, now that you're worked on yourself and your audience, now you need to work on the technology. And that's almost as important as to warming yourself up and your audience. Being engaged or comfortable, not necessarily mastering, but having a working knowledge of the technology will really make much more easier for you and also those that are presenting. If you're stressed out because you don't know the keystrokes to use to turn your camera on or off, or how to mute people, and you're down here at your keyboard, you're going to lose everyone. So study up, know your format, know your technology. Chances are you're going to get questions from the audience too. And as we know, there are never any problems when it comes to teaching in a virtual environment. We know that.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for being here on time. Paul? Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hey guys,
Hey, Tyler.
sorry I'm late. Having a hard time connecting.
1 second. Paul's having a sound issue.
I can't hear you.
Try adjusting your output settings.
Can you
It's
hear
the-
me?
It's the gear icon.
Tyler, are you on hotel Wi-Fi?
Yeah, why?
Never mind, I got it. I just had to change a few settings.
Great, great. Maybe we can get started then. Oh, great.
I think your mic is picking up your speakers.
My mic?
Do you have headphones?
You want me to put them on?
No, I want you to smell them. No, I want you to put them on. Hey, Beth.
Hey everyone. Sorry I'm late. I had to download a new version of the platform.
You should plan extra time for the updates. There's pretty much one every time.
Sounds like someone just joined.
Hey guys, it's John. I had to call in. I'm stuck in traffic. Have I missed anything yet?
No, it would have been nice for you to join the rest of us, but we'll see you when you get home. All right, while everyone is here, finally, Tyler, do you have that financial report?
Well, it's been the last few weeks updating our books, and I got some great news for you. Schedule from this point last year. We had a great Q1.
We lost Tyler, I think.
Am I frozen?
Hey, Trip, I think we lost Tyler.
Yeah, I know, we lost Tyler.
Hey guys, it sounded like Tyler was cutting out.
We know, John. All right, while we wait on Tyler, why don't we go over all of the reports from... Beth, are you with us?
Oh yeah.
Okay, everyone, I know some of you have to leave soon, but I just wanted to go over a couple of the queries before. Okay, excuse me. My wife's out of town this week. Daddy's, I'm so sorry. Okay, you just spilt grape juice on the carpet. Daddy is in a meeting. Tyler, can you go over the numbers one more time, please?
I thought Beth had an adjustment. Hey, Beth.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, that's my iTunes.
Hey guys, hang on. I'm gonna join in. Hey, what platform are you guys on? Skype? FaceTime?
It's in the invite.
Oh, never mind. I see it. It's right there in the invite.
Okay, now I can see everybody.
Let's reschedule and let's just do a regular old conference call, okay? Paul, can you have David send out the 9-digit passcode?
I heard you.
Yeah, he's been here the whole time.
All right, everybody. I'll see you later.
And just to let you know that, yes, I am wearing pants today, but that's a great video from Zoom. And I'm sure we can all relate to that. And if you want, you can just do a search on YouTube for Zoom. I think it was video conference comedy, and you can find that. But do me a favor. If you can, in the chat box, write some things that you think face-to-face won't work in a virtual environment. I'm just curious. We've experienced our own virtual environments. We went through Forum, but still, what's in the back of your mind is working. I asked the NIGP group that I did the class to a same type of question, and they sent me their concerns that they had, and I'll share those with just in a moment while you get a chance to maybe share some of your thoughts. What isn't going to work, or have you come to the conclusion that it's going to work? I'm going to make it work. But here's some of the concerns that they said that it's not going to work. But I would seriously argue with every point that they make, I would disagree, and that I can make it work. It's just, again, going back to preparation and creativity. And in the list of resources that are included in this presentation, along with the PowerPoint slides, there's a list of articles, and make sure you check out the article from Deloitte. I think it's the first one. They have an excellent point counterpoint where on one side it's no, it's not going to work, and on this side, this is how it's going to work. So if you have any issues in regards to things that you don't think are going to work, go ahead and check out that report. But send me an email if still after reading that report you're like, this isn't going to work. Maybe I can help you come up with some ideas. Again, you just got to be creative, and the most important thing is no matter what your material is, no matter what your platform is, this is the key to it. You've got to practice. You got to be comfortable. You have to be able to do this. When I was working with staff in Alaska, one of my coworkers put on the best procurement classes, and I always like going to her class because she never looked at her notes. She engaged, she had great eye contact. And I said, how are you able to present without looking at your notes? And she shared with me, she said, every night when I'm on the treadmill, I go through my presentation weeks in advance. Well, I have a treadmill, maybe I should start using it next time I teach a class, but that's the important thing is, if you want to be dedicated, if you want to be true to your profession, if you want to give your best, you've got to practice. The hard part rather is you've got to choose a format. If you don't have one, there are plenty to choose from. And also in the list of resources, there's several articles that have, they list the different formats or platforms that you can use and the pros and cons and the costs that are available. And you might want to check that out too if you're looking for a platform. But since NIGP uses Zoom and I use Zoom at my location, let me just make some points going forward as to what Zoom provides. You can get a free Zoom account. It's limited to 40 minutes, but you can practice at home everything that you can do with a paid account. Get it, you can practice how to switch video on, how to switch your sharing screens, how to mute everyone, how to use the chat, how to use the breakout room. It's amazing. But then once you choose a format, there are tons of instructional videos available to help you with your training. Now, since moving to Spokane, we bought a home. I have been a big fan of YouTube. And if you've ever tackled on a home project and you've never done it before and you want to give it a try, you know YouTube is your friend too. I fixed water heaters, installed ceiling fans, I worked on my car, a ton of different projects, but also YouTube has great resources for tutorials. Zoom is, as you can see, there's a ton of Zoom ones. The Zoom company does a great job, and there's a couple links to some of their live training that they had Q&A that you probably have the same questions that I encourage you to do that. But I really enjoy the tutorials from the users, from the non-Zoom employees, because sometimes they have different advice and more tips that I find more relevant. Now, couple things that I really enjoy with Zoom that help with the interaction is the whiteboard. When I teach in training, I have those big sheets that are on the wall that we rip off and we put notes on. We can do the same thing virtually. And not only am I writing down the notes too, but you can have everybody that's attending write their own notes on the same sheet. It's just like brainstorming with everyone interacting at the same time. There's also a feature in Zoom called breakout rooms, and you probably experienced this during forum, but if you haven't, it's where the leader or the trainer will send a group of people to breakout rooms, to their own private rooms where they can chat among themselves and interact. And then when it's time to come back, the leader will click a button. And then in those breakout rooms, a 60-second clock shows up and says you'll be joining back the main group in 60 seconds. I really enjoy Zoom. I enjoy the features, and I'm learning more each day. But when it comes to whatever format you use, you want to make sure that you check with your legal to make sure if you're going to use it in a formal event, be it public bid openings, public hearings, vendor training, anything related that there is a legal ramification. Make sure your legal requirements for all public meetings are met by checking with your legal. Our Zoom meetings meet all the requirements. It automatically takes attendance of who's there. It records it. And I think that's all the requirements that we meet and we have to have. We can also send out an invite to everyone. We also post on our website when we're having public hearings. So we meet all our legal requirements. So after discussing how your attitude and your preparation can help with the success of any virtual environment or event, I want to gauge your attitude once again. So if we could bring up the next question, it's simply, how comfortable are you now in presenting in a virtual environment? Not a problem. I could use a little more training. I don't care. I relate that to I'm not going to be doing it. Or I have no idea what to do and I'm scared, I'm very anxious. Go ahead and be honest if you could and select how you're really feeling about being able to present in a virtual world.
We'll give everybody about 5 more seconds to get the response in. And here are the results.
Okay. People, mostly the majority of people, 63% could use a little more training and practice. I'm there. And I bet anybody that provides training in NIGP or any environment can say the same things. I'm very proud of the 27%, and maybe you should be putting on some training for all of us that are a little anxious still. 3% don't care. Thank you for your honesty. But for the 7% that said, I have no idea or what to do, and you're scared, thank you again for your honesty. And you'd be surprised that even some of NIGP's most seasoned trainers, even an NIGP master certified instructor who has decades of procurement and training experience, was nervous when she was told she was putting on her own training session in a virtual world. She'll talk about how you can increase your level of engagement and some great tips on how you can prepare.
Hi there, my name is Marquita Gillespie, and I'm an instructor for NIGP. I've been in public procurement for a number of years, and I've had the good fortune of being an instructor for about 18 years. I love to teach. I love procurement, and I really love to engage with students all over North America, talking about the profession and how to build core competencies. And so it's just something I always have enjoyed. And I will say, I'll be honest, I have always focused on live interaction in a classroom setting. In person, I really, really enjoy interacting with people in a live setting. And so historically have not been so interested in doing online instruction. And in fact, when NIGP asked in the past if people were willing to do more online, I kind of passed on that because I just did not feel like that was the place for me. I felt that things were lost in an online environment. And so I always focused on live classroom interaction. So here comes COVID-19, right? And the world definitely changes, and we have to change with it. So when NIGP started talking with instructors about doing virtual training, especially with the new material coming out with Pathways, I had to take a serious look at whether or not I felt I was suited for that type of training. And I will again be honest and say I wasn't so sure. I wasn't sure if I could still have the same energy and still convey the same passion about what I was teaching and have that same level of interaction I might have in the live classroom setting. But I agreed and I dove head in, and I was really fortunate to have some great colleagues to share their own experiences about virtual training, and it really helped me. So I'm hoping that some of the things I'll share with you about my own experiences are helpful to you, especially if you were like me, a little reluctant or a little scared about what might be on that virtual side that you're just not used to and equipped to do in a live setting. So I'm going to give you some tips that have helped me, and hopefully they will be useful for you. So first and foremost, I really had to think about investing in some new tools and new setups. And so since I was going to be working out of my home, you'll see I invested in some cool things that really have been helpful. So you see my light ring that I bought that helps with the lighting, because in this particular space I have a window behind me, and because of how my desk is set up and built into the wall, I needed to manage this space. And you'll see I have a large monitor and then my laptop as well. And then I have a camera that I can move to either space. So I kind of set it up so that I was comfortable and had the ability to come across good visually and also audibly. So I've also purchased a headset that I'll begin using. But that was kind of the first thing I did, was set up so that I was comfortable in my space. I also wanted to make sure I had room to move and set up the different documents that I might be using. So whether I had something on one screen, maybe a workbook for the students, but also wanted a printed copy of something else that I could place in front of me, whatever I could do to set up my space so that I could make sure that I limited my distractions and my need to look away from focusing on the students. So audio-visual exercises and practices are very important because you want to feel comfortable in front of the camera and in moving around your space. So lots of prep time, lots of practice. I'm very fortunate that I have groups of individuals that I could practice with so that I was comfortable maneuvering around, in this case, Zoom, that I understood the tools and was comfortable in the transitions especially. One thing that's always been really important to me is the level of energy and engagement. That was my biggest concern in transitioning from a live classroom experience to an online virtual experience. I didn't want the students to have any less of a sense of how passionate I am about procurement. So learning to interact with the camera and learning to engage the students is really critical. And that's up to you and your skill sets and how you like to engage. We're all different instructors, so you can apply what is your unique strengths to how you can interact with the students. Keep in mind, students are dealing with this transition too, so they may have a harder time engaging virtually and speaking up, or conversely, they might be great and maybe in the classroom they were a little reluctant, but now they're really interested in engaging because they have a little bit more comfort behind the video. Lots of variety. So one of the things I try to do is really change things up constantly, because when you're just sitting and looking at a screen, it's tough. I think it's even tougher than when you sit in a room and just watch an instructor. Nobody wants to sit there and listen to an instructor talk all day long. So switching in between tools, changing different group arrangements, using videos, using the whiteboards, using the breakout rooms. Keep it constantly changing. It's a lot easier for the engagement and the intention level of your students. Be comfortable with the pause. Just like in a live setting, you got to get comfortable with giving people space to engage. And I've found that in the virtual setting, I might need to give a little bit more time. And it might be a little more awkward in the virtual environment to have long pauses, but it is really important in order to get the students to interact and answer, and not you as an instructor filling that space immediately. I also ask a lot of questions. So more so again than I might in the live classroom, I've learned to constantly ask for students to answer questions, because I want to make sure they're constantly engaged. One of the things you'll find is in the virtual world, it's really easy for the students to get distracted. So you're going to have to learn how to manage students who might be on a phone call, talking to somebody else, dealing with the kids or the dog. Some of those are understandable, but some of them are distractions that you want to help the student manage so that it doesn't distract from their virtual learning experience. I also like to constantly gauge the room. So I take pauses and opportunities to ask the students, how are we doing? Do we need an extra break? Are there questions that you have? Do we want to change up and do something different for a little while? Do we need a fun break, right? And that's something really important to me. There's just as much opportunity to have fun in the virtual setting as in the live setting. So I'm still doing my 2 truths and a lie. We're still showing each other different pieces of our life. Now we get to do it at home often. So maybe I'm going to toss up a picture of the dog. Maybe somebody's going to have their grandchild or their child step in and wave at the group. Totally okay with those things. Take those moments and those breaks to give people an opportunity to be comfortable in your virtual classroom. Make sure that you give time and opportunity for people to debrief on what they've learned, and still do those review sessions while balancing your time to make sure you cover the material. At the end of the day, I'll tell you honestly, I love the virtual classroom environment. It is way better than I expected. And I really have found little that I'm not able to do in the virtual environment that I was doing in the live. I'll still be honest and tell you, I choose live interaction in person over virtual, and I hope we get there someday soon. But for now, really excited that I'm still able to instruct and interact with students around the country, around North America, and do so in a virtual environment and still have fun doing it. And I am still having lots of fun doing this, so I feel very fortunate to be an instructor for NIGP. So I hope these comments and tips are helpful to you. Good luck, and make sure you leverage your instructor community, because there's a lot of people with experience in the virtual world. It's just been a great opportunity for me to learn and continue to hone my own skills. So thanks, good luck, and see you online.
Thank you, Marquita. Some great advice there. And as she talked about her hardware that she uses, here's a couple items that I use. I prefer a headset. After 30 years in the radio business, I'm used to having something on my head. And this camera is actually very inexpensive, and yet the quality is, I think, does a great job of what we need in interacting with each other. Both of those are Logitech products, and this is a clicker. It's nothing more irritating than somebody with a loud, an old-fashioned keyboard that clicks when they're advancing through the slides. This makes no noise at all. It also has I can blank the screen. I have a pointer on it too, and it's really small, fits in your hand, and has no problem too. And it's also a Logitech product, and as Doodad would say, not a official sponsor of this program yet. And since I talked to Marquita and she told me about her light ring, I went out and I purchased my own light ring. Now, if I went out a week earlier, I would have saved 30 bucks instead of the 120 bucks that I spent for it. But it's all important that you have the right material, the right lighting, the right ability to be heard. Very important that you can hear your audience too. This is a one-way delivery today, but if you're in a class or a meeting situation, you need to be able to hear everyone very clearly. And also your camera, you need to be seen clearly so you can interact. It's just like me staring you in the eye right now. That takes a little bit of getting used to, but you get used to it too. And also encourage your attendees to have a camera too. If you want to interact, you have to be able to see each other. And I love the Zoom meetings when those individuals would turn on their camera. And I got a chance to actually see some personality, and somebody would make a joke or something, and seeing people actually smile and laugh, it was fun, and actually made a few more friendships over the camera use during the forum. Also, something important is if you're using an iPad or a smartphone, you saw Marquita had a holder inside the ring. Try not to have your camera at the desktop level, because I don't know about you, I don't really enjoy looking up people's noses when they're training at all. But the angle is important. It's either straight on or just a little bit looking down. And then also make sure that your environment is effective and not distracting either. It's important that your office is set up so that you have all the materials you need to present with everything very close and handy. This is the setup I used in an online class that I did. I had my teaching material on one side, what the students were seeing on the left side, the chat box in the middle, and the text off to the left. It's very important that you have everything there and can see everything going on, especially have the cameras of the individuals watching too, to watch their engagement too. Another very clear example of having all your material on one site, and one office that is actually engaging but not very effective. All the material that I've gotten together to present today, most of it came from free material online. And this is from some of the best sources that I have in regards to newsletters, training blogs that will send me information almost on a daily basis that I just get tons of information too. I encourage you too, if you have a source that you're using that isn't one of these, share that with everyone so that they can go online and find that information that you have received too. In your material that you have, the resources for all of these, there's links to each one of these pages so that you can sign up and getting their newsletters too. And just to recap so far what we've talked about so far, it's important to keep your engagement level good by setting the stage. Make sure there's nothing distracting. I have a painting in the background. There's no kids running in and out. I don't have a cat jumping up on top of my keyboard, but keep it clean, dress professional, and be brief. As Marquita said, the attention level of people online is 10 to 15 minutes, and then we start to zone out. We look at email, we come up with our grocery list, but have something, some activity, some engagement every 5 to 10 to 15 minutes, a poll, an exercise, a game, an icebreaker, a breaker, or anything to keep it going. And if you can, keep your group small so that you can have everybody on camera at the same time. If not, when you go to the breakout session, make sure you tell everyone you have to have your cameras on in the breakout section. Allow enough time for engagement from everyone, not only in the big session, but in the breakout sessions. And then those practices that we already do face-to-face carry over in the virtual world. Make sure that people know why you're meeting, that there's an agenda, and that you let them know in the agenda prior to the meeting what the topic is and what their level of engagement will be. Will they have to present a report or respond to a question? Tell stories. That's the best way to engage your attendees, your customers, or ask for examples. And as Marquita said, don't be afraid to wait for silence. I waited for 30 seconds one time. I asked for an example for something, and the best story that I ever heard came out. So don't be afraid of silence. Now, if you're in the radio business, you've got 10 seconds before the silence alarm goes off, but there's no alarm that's going to be going off. Embrace the silence sometimes. Keep it simple. Get to the point. Everyone wants to know what's going on without using big words, but just make it relative. We're humans interacting, and then anticipate questions. And I also say, give permission for questions. Let people know if you have a question at any time, raise it, bring it up, and then also know how you're going to respond. Don't be the trainer that has to answer every question. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. What does everyone else think? Or answer a question with a question. Sometimes you might need to get clarification on something in order to find out what somebody is really looking for. Here's another news source that I discovered on YouTube, one of my new favorite sites, Laura Burgles. And she had this interactive, there's no sound on it, but it was just great tips that she puts out on how to ensure effective engagement in your environment. Now, the link on this 7 tips on bringing chit chat is also in your link, so you can go and look at this further and also see some other slides of information that she provides. And she did give me permission to use this during today's presentation. And then also there are some great webinars that have been presented that are actually recorded that you can go back and watch. NASPO did a great 2-part series on teaching in a virtual. Also, there are some Zoom tutorials, some Q&A sessions that I talked about previously. Those links are also in your attached document. But go if you're really interested in learning more simple techniques, things to keep in mind that while you're talking and training and interacting, all these other things are in the back of your mind, encouraging you to try different things as you go along. And then also, don't be afraid to be yourself. As Marquita said, it's important that you let your audience see that you're a person too, and you have ideas and hobbies and subject matter that make you relative to your audience. Now, I had the benefit of spending 45 years in Alaska. And by that, I always bring to my training sessions slides that have been taken at least 15 miles from my house when I lived there by family and friends and by myself. And I use this as an icebreaker or a transition or lead into another class after break or lunch. And I just love people's questions because, you know, yes, that's a king salmon, and yes, somebody caught that, and her name is Cammie, and she's really nice. But if you ask people, their bucket list is often includes trips to Alaska. So I encourage people, share your hobbies, share something about yourself, ask other people, you know, what do you like to do? That way you can engage, and then also your audience will know, you know, that you're a person too. And now I've used materials and tips and tricks from other NIGP instructors, and I thank them profusely. But no offense, I don't want to be the next David or the next Richard or the next Barb. I want to be the next me, and I encourage you to be the next you. Feel free to take any information from this session or from forum, but make sure you make it your own. People want to see you. And yes, you have to attend my next class if you want to see some more slides. And that's just the way I roll. But in summary, let's look at some things that you need to prepare as you get ready for your ongoing virtual training or your first virtual training. You need to prepare yourself. Now, I said earlier, it's not about you, but it's totally up to you on the success of your virtual environment, on the level of engagement, on how you pull people into your class and they walk away better and you walk away better too. Get your material in your head, but make sure it comes from your heart. People will know the difference from someone who reads a slide and someone that's sharing something very important. Prepare your material. It's more than just a PowerPoint, it's mastering the technology. Find your virtual format and practice, practice, practice. And prepare your audience. Tell them in advance what's going to happen, how they can excel, what they can do, what technology they should be bringing, what's their role, what's their purpose, what's their expectation, what are they going to walk away with the information from attending yours, and especially prepare to have fun. This is a great format. As Marquita said, I love face-to-face, but I'm embracing the virtual world because we're spending this time together. I wish we had an opportunity to share everyone's camera so I could say hi to everyone and see you, but this is the best that we can do, and it's actually, it's good. It's a good way to teach people. Now, before we get to your questions, I want to make sure that I send you my personal information. Feel free to reach out to me. If you have any questions, if you have material that you want to have reviewed to make sure it's effective, if you want ideas for how to engage, some icebreakers, some games, send me a question. Reach out to me. Send me your material. I'm more than happy to look at it and take what I've learned from the masters and pass on to you. So with that, do we have any questions from our audience?
Thanks, Victor. Yeah, we had a few questions come in. First question, how do you handle situations when your internet connection is having trouble or when conflict arises between team members you rely on, or when one attendee is slowing down the group you're trying to train?
All very good. The best thing in regards to technology and bandwidth is to test your system in advance. Maybe have a pre-meeting with everybody on board just to make sure everyone has connectivity. And have everybody test their microphones. There's nothing worse than getting on the microphone and you get that echo going back and forth, and you have to have everyone mute their microphones. Personally, I don't like speakers on smartphones. I like people being plugged in because it takes away that speaker and the loop. But make sure you test everything in advance. When it comes to engaging people, a couple things you can do. Tell them in advance what's going to be happening. Send out that agenda that has, we're spending 10 minutes on this subject, 10 minutes on this. Bring your ideas and your topics and be prepared to share them. But there often is that person that is always seeming to know the answer to everything. There's a couple things you can do. You can thank them and say, thank you so-and-so for that. Would someone else like to share? You can drop hints. The nice thing with online, you have that private chat that you can say, if you wouldn't mind, I appreciate, and I try to phrase it this way when there's somebody experienced in the class and they know it all. I say, I'll take them aside or tell them in advance, I really appreciate you being here and the knowledge that you'll be sharing with everyone. Can I call on you in certain times in the class to share your experiences? And they get a sense of, yes, I'm going to be called on, and I don't think I have to just jump in because I know I'm going to be called on. In a worst case scenario, if someone won't take hints, won't take your chat comments, just take a break. Take them out in the hallway and say, I really want everyone else to have a chance to interact. If you wouldn't mind, can you refrain from talking so much? Sometimes you have to be blunt, but try to be professional and polite as best as you can.
Thanks, Victor. And this one comes from Carol. I'm trying to master meme2meter.com, but I've not figured it all out yet. What other tools are available like this to help keep a presentation interesting?
Now, I'm not familiar with Memes2Meters, but if it's a tool you use during a presentation, there's a couple things to do. Go to YouTube and put that in there, and you'll see related topics and maybe some other examples. But the best thing you can do is go to Perch Issues on Nsight and NIGP and throw that question out there. I'm using this tool. Has anybody used it? Anybody recommend something else? And make sure you put on there the result that you're looking for. And trust me, you're going to get tons of advice from other people that have experienced what you're experiencing, and they'll direct you in an area that will be more engaging and more effective. Effective.
And this one comes from Barb Johnson. How do you motivate your remote working team to attend and contribute to the work conversation?
Oh, that's a deep question, Barb. But if it's the boss sending out the question or sending out the invite, I don't really think you have a choice. But a good supervisor, a good boss, will throw it out there in advance. The same thing with the agenda. And they'll actually make it fun. I love a supervisor that comes along and saying, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? Or how, not just saying, bring your topics. Throw out something in advance. Throw out a survey. Brainstorm in the middle of a group. But make sure you have to make sure everybody trusts each other, because there's nothing worse in a meeting when there is internal drama and nobody's speaking. But if you are a good boss, you'll address that and you'll say, we need to engage with each other to be the best that we can be. Go back to your mission statement for your office and make sure it applies to what you're doing. And that applies to also how you prepare your group. Be a leader that's not only engaging, but also excites your group to be the best that they can be. And that's what I try to do in our office. Is I see someone that has potential and I'll encourage them. I see someone that has a talent in this area, I encourage them to do that. But I just make sure I give everyone encouraging words to be the best that they can be.
And Joyce would like to know, do you have any tips for engaging when teaching a system?
One thing, well, let me just say, there's nothing better than having hands-on. If you can, if you're in a Zoom environment, you can give someone access to control the screen. And if you say you have that system up and you tell everyone, we want to teach you this part today, let everyone try it. We're going to be teaching a Zoom class to NIGP instructors on how to interact in a virtual world. And part of the training we're going to be doing is actually going to breakout rooms and saying, okay, it's your turn to run a breakout room. It's your turn to do a poll. Show us how to mute everyone. Not just giving them a list of instructions, but the more you allow them to do hands-on, the more people will learn. I learn best by hearing, reading, seeing, and doing, a combination of all four. If you take one of those away, it lessens my chance of mastering that. So the more you engage everyone on all the senses, the more they're going to be able to learn.
In your opinion, how is leading virtually better than leading in person?
I'm at home. I'm saving gas. I'm not getting sick. I can prepare at any time of the day. I'm not commuting. I get the same interaction. I do miss the hugs at Forum, I'll be honest, but I'm enjoying so much having a front row seat. And I wish we were in an environment where I could see everyone, because we would be able to engage so much better. And to be perfectly honest too, I really enjoy the chat function. During Forum, I spent a lot of time chatting in the entire session, but a lot of private chats, sending a comment to the instructor, to NIGP, seeing someone I know online and sending them a quick comment or a joke, and then watching them on screen when they read it and seeing their reaction. In a virtual world without cameras, you can't get that. So I think having the audio and the video is essential for the success of any virtual environment or event.
How do you capture training activities where attendees were broken out into groups to reinforce training materials?
Record. You have an option to record these meetings and then put them in an archive. And there's also some software that you can edit them, take out the non-essential parts, and then put it in your library. Maybe give them credit for watching it. Maybe have a test at the end of it. But I would love to, some of my training that I do with vendors, record and then post for vendors that couldn't make it, or if it's just a understanding how to do business with Spokane County, post that out there with not only the video of how to register, here's the link, here's the button that you click. We have a new e-procurement system that sometimes vendors that have never submitted a bid virtually don't know what to do. And unfortunately, they call within 30 minutes of the bid due date, and I'll walk them through how to do it. Now, if I had a video that I posted along with the solicitation that said, here are the steps that you need to follow to submit a bid successfully electronically with us, I think I would save myself a lot of time.
And this one comes from Lisa. Is it possible the presentation used in person may need to be edited for virtual learning?
Yes. Often you'll find that there's a lot of extra material that's not relative and sometimes can be distracting. The issue is finding the software to be able to do it, or a company that can do that for you. But it does take time to go through and mark, okay, delete 32 minutes and 30 seconds to 45 seconds. But if the end product is valuable and is a resource that you can put in your library, then I would encourage you to do that.
And just a reminder, if you have any questions for Victor, please put those in the Q&A box. And since we have some extra time, Richie Liu would like to know more details about your Logitech clicker.
My clicker, the clicker. Okay. I guess I could. It's Logitech, and I have a USB plug-in that comes out of here and plugs into the computer, so I can advance or go back if for some particular reason I need to go back to a previous slide. If I have a video, there's a play button. This black screen is very important. It will blank the screen if all of a sudden we're having a topic or a rabbit trail or even an in-depth discussion. I like to blank the video screen so the focus is on the discussion rather than the slide. And then there's a pointer too that it doesn't work on the monitors or on a PowerPoint, but if you had something up on the board, you could point it out and do that. They do make these so that and I believe Zoom does it too, that if you have a slide up, you can bring a virtual pointer and highlight or point at something on the screen. But I love this when I'm teaching face-to-face because I can walk around the room. I'm a mover and I like to engage with people. I don't like to be leashed to a part on the stage. But if I have my clicker in my hand, I can be anywhere in the room and advance the slides. But I believe I got this at Office Plus, but Logitech is the product of choice. And again, not an official sponsor of this webinar yet.
And just to clarify from the last question, Janet, thank you. She says, I meant training activities that would have normally been conducted as a component of training, such as breaking attendance up into different teams and having them compete against each other for prizes.
And that would be the breakout room if you're using Zoom. I think they did this during a forum when they had a trivia night, and they had teams of 5. And with Zoom, you can pre-populate your breakout rooms. And that's what I like to do with my surveys before a class. I don't like to have the same people in the same office, in the same breakout room. I like to have different variety of people, experts to novices, to a wide variety of expertise in buying goods and services. And then I like to break it up so that I have county and city, state and college in a group, and it's not all the same people. I will never have a supervisor with somebody that works under them in the same group. But the breakout sessions, when you set it up, you click a button and people will be sent to their rooms. They have private conversations. And as the instructor, I can pop in and out of the different breakout rooms and see how things are going. With the breakout room, they can bring up the whiteboard, they can bring up their cameras, they can, the whiteboard's great because they can brainstorm, and then they have to save that document as I think it's a JPEG, because it doesn't transfer over from the breakout back to the main session. But that's what I would recommend as a breakout room for your individual sessions when you need smaller groups working together.
And do you recommend restricting attendees from or enabling attendees the ability to record a virtual session?
Yes. I think with Zoom, you have to be I think you only have the ability to record. Is that correct, Justin?
Yeah, in Zoom, it would send a request to whoever's the host, and then they would have to accept you recording it. Right.
So if your attendees are there and they see that record button, they can click on it all they want, but it's not going to record.
Right.
Only the host has that ability.
And those are all our questions. If anybody has any last minute questions, please input those in the Q&A box. Victor, do you have any closing statements you'd like to make?
I feel like I'm in court now. No, Your Honor, no. No, I'm not going to throw myself at the mercy of the class, but again, let me reiterate, the virtual world is new. It can be scary, but as I was taught as a kid, you can't say, I don't like it until you try it. Now, I'll be honest that I tried tomatoes and I still don't like them, but I can say that I did try them. But jump into the virtual world and give it a go. Look at some of the webinars, the training sessions, and the links that I sent to you. Get a Zoom account and just play around with it. It's fun to do it in your office or with your coworkers, so that you set up the meeting and you send them the invite and they come in and you can just practice. Okay, I'm going to give you hosting rights. I'm going to send you into a breakout session. Let's pull up a whiteboard. I'm going to do a poll. Just practice and play with it. And the more fun you have, the more you're going to be able to learn all the techniques that you need to know in working in a virtual environment.
Thank you, Victor. I hope everyone enjoyed the webinar. Please take time to fill out the evaluation survey. A link containing the survey and a recording of this webinar will be emailed to everyone tomorrow morning. Thanks again and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Justin.